Kings Island just released its 2026 events calendar, and all of them may seem pretty familiar to you. Hello, everybody. Alongside Don Helbig, I'm Ryan Sir, and this is Tower Topics.
New episodes of Tower Topics. They drop 3 times a week. You can listen wherever you get your podcast or watch on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So, Ryan, the events, at least the first part of the year, they've been released by Kings Island for 2026. We start with April 17th, Season Pass Preview Day.
Yay. They did announce, they did put in the description that Phantom Theater Opening Nightmare would be open for it. So I guess that's the news on that front. When they did the construction tour a couple weeks ago, we weren't invited, by the way. But when they did the construction tour, they said that it would open with the park on April 18th. And I know some people speculated that that would mean it's not open for past preview day. But, you know, I think that past preview day is kind of like preseason, as you've often said. So, yeah, it will be open. So I'm particularly excited for past preview day as a result of that I get to check out Phantom Theater Opening Nightmare.
And one of the things that comes up with Season Pass Preview Day, you look at the Facebook group for the Season Pass Facebook group. There's always that discussion about I'm not going near the place. It's crowded. It's busy. I can tell you from working there for 17 seasons, that is far from the busiest day of the year.
No. And it's a Friday during the day. I think it's 12 to 9 this year.
12 to 9, right?
So that is a work day for a lot of people. Opening day is usually pretty busy if the weather holds out. Past preview feels busy because everybody's new that day. Even 10-year veterans are having their first day encountering guests in 6 months. But come on. I mean, if anything, go to the park, enjoy it, walk around. I think Season Pass Preview Day is one of the best days of the year. The first day and the last day of the season are my favorites because the first day, it's Kings Island's opening day for me as a season pass holder. And then the last day of the season, New Year's Eve, is a celebration. I see it as a send off to the season.
Right. So, yeah, if you're thinking about going, don't be scared off by the comments about everybody talking about how busy it is. Again, it's not even going to be one of the 15, 20, 30 busiest days of the year at Kings Island. Opening day, the next day, April 18th.
Yeah, that'll be a busy day. To me, I kind of like take it a little lax because I spend all day there on Season Pass Preview Day. But opening day almost loses its luster because for a lot of people, especially in the shoulder season, opening day is the 17th, not the 18th. And I'm sure, like, as a park employee, you're opening your gates for the first time on the 17th. So to you, that's opening day as well. So the only difference between the 17th and the 18th is you can buy a ticket to the 18th.
Right. Now, in between those two dates and Memorial Day weekend, there's several of those school events, that they have there. But for everybody to be able to participate in the next event is Soak City opening weekend, Memorial Day weekend, starting on May 23rd.
Yeah. And I'm sure that some people get excited for that. I've actually never really gone to Soak City for opening day of Soak City. Is that, to your experience, is that particularly busy? Do people like line up to go to Soak City, or is it weather dependent again?
They do. I mean, it is a big deal. There are a lot of people, a lot of families that the only reason they have a season pass to Kings Island is for Soak City Water Park.
Yeah.
So it is a big day, for the aquatics enthusiasts.
Yeah,
that are out there.
It is exciting.
Yeah, it's a big day. Yeah, I want to bring something up though. These 3 days, Kings Island touts them as events. But what is it about, those days, like opening day? I can see season pass preview day. Yeah, that's special. But opening day and the opening of Soak City Water Park, there's nothing else other than just the park's open. So what makes it an event? Are they giving away T-shirts? They're giving away, anything to the first 5,000 guests at the gate? There's nothing about it that says, it qualifies as an event. There's nothing, when you go on Sunday, it's going to be the same thing as a Saturday, that opening weekend. So why classify it as an event?
That's a great question. I season pass preview, I would say, since the operations are different, since it's season pass only, I could
Yeah, that's an event.
I
Yeah,
could see the argument for that. Now, opening day, I mean,
but
yeah,
there's no celebration. There's no parade. There's no dignitaries. There's nothing about it. It's not like the grand opening of the park, you know. So there's nothing that separates opening day on April 18th from any other day during the season, hardly.
yeah,
So I have a hard time. I mean, to me, it just looks like you're just trying to fill dates on a website on a calendar to
yeah,
claim you have X number of dates by claiming those two, Soak City and opening day as events.
yeah. Soak City, I agree with you. Now, to play devil's advocate, if our definition of an event means that something is different inside the park, Soak City opening is different from, so if you go on May 22nd, it's different from the 23rd because Soak City's open on
Right.
the 23rd.
Yeah, I
So
can see that a
I
little bit.
see
Yeah.
that argument, but yeah, it probably all three of those dates are just to be like, see, we got a lot going on this year. Opening day,
Right.
Soak City opening day.
Yeah. So we next get to what is an actual event. It's returning for the third year. The Food and Wine Festival. It's going to be Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays, May 29th to June 21st. Last year, I thought it was improved
Hmm.
over the first year. So hopefully we continue to see improvement because I think this is an event that potentially it has some legs. It has some staying power to it. I think.
Yeah, the problem with food and wine festivals, especially the name food and wine, is that there are a lot of parks that do food and wine festivals. They call them food and wine, and they do a really, really good job with them. We're looking at Busch Gardens,
Williamsburg,
Williamsburg,
yeah,
Epcot. A lot of these parks do a really good job with them. So Kings Island choosing that theme and choosing that kind of demeanor and choosing that name is asking to be compared to them. So um, I mean, that's kind of like one bad thing that about Kings Island's events, and we'll get to Grand Carnival, but food and wine is very similar to Epcot, and it's kind of like, well, that's a almost like a park wide event with dozens of different foods, and this is like one square yard.
yeah,
Now, what they
yeah.
do
This
have,
is so contained, into the area that it's
yeah,
at the
and
Park
to be
Tower
clear,
Gardens
like
area.
it's gotten better. Um, the food was horrendous the first year. I don't think I tried it the second year, but I do enjoy the event. I'm excited for it. Like it improved the first year to the second year. Um, but comparing it to a lot of other parks that do the same thing with events that are park wide, immersive, and there's, you know, we've talked about this before, but the worst thing you can do is put a lot of money into an event and people who we're going to show up anyway. They're like, oh, they're doing that today. That's the worst thing you can do because you just wasted your money. But Grand Carnival is kind of like this. I mean, like Mardi Gras at Universal, where it's like they're clearly like, the parade is based off of Mardi Gras, and they've got the booths that are based off of Epcot's World Showcase, and it's like, well, this is a mini, 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 mini version of that, and that's not what you want. You want to have your own identity and so on. And I think that it gets worse as they scale it back. I believe that with Grand Carnival, they said there'd be changes this year, and we'll get to that. But I don't think those changes will be for the positive. Food and wine, on the other hand, got better from year one to year two. So I'm very curious if they're going to claw it back or expand it more because it could go either way this year.
Yeah, it's I was asked to compare it to. Somebody said, "How would you compare it to Busch Gardens, Williamsburg? You just came from there, because I attended that event last year." And I said, "Well, if you put it in baseball terms, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, Major League,
Mm.
Food and Wine at Kings Island, that festival, kind of like Class A baseball. There's a big gap
Is it at
difference
least a
between
high A baseball, or are we talking
put
like
it high A, but there's a
okay?
huge gap between what Busch Gardens Williamsburg is doing with their event and what Kings Island does with Food and Wine. But still a step in the right direction last year. I just think I'd like to see it be a little bit more immersive, spread out around the park a little bit more. But we don't know. Maybe they'll do that this year. But moving on, we have Star Spangled Night, July 4th. Now, when this was first published on the website, it was June 29th to July 5th. So it was Star Spangled Nights on the website in the description. It said nights. It had the date run, and then later in the day it was scaled back to July 4th, which begs the question: just sloppiness in putting up the events, or was something cut after it was published? So we'll start with you, Brian, here, talking about the date run. What do you think when it was, that many days, 6 days spread out, and then now it's just one?
I am about to get you my theory because I'm pulling up Cedar Point and I want to see what their dates are. Because if their dates are the 29th through the 5th, then we know what the mistake was.
Sloppiness then becomes the category.
They are June 29th through July 4th. So they
Okay.
transposed Kings Island and Cedar Point is what happened. Case closed.
You got to be more careful when you put stuff out there, don't you think?
I agree. And
But one night, so we can only, assume it's been this way since 1972, that the 4th of July is always a bigger night for fireworks at Kings Island. It's the place to be in the tri-state, I think, for fireworks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what day does July 4th fall on? Because they've done encore presentations, quote unquote encore, for the last several years. July 4th is on a Saturday. So they're kind of crazy not to add the 3rd in. I feel like they might.
And the 5th, might as well. But yeah, I think I was excited when I saw that it was June 29th to July 5th. Like, this could be pretty good. That they're going to have all these nights and expanded fireworks shows, and people traveling and that. It's going to be great. But then
Yeah.
it just went back to the 4th as I was preparing for this episode, and saw that it was back to a single day. But again, I think they do a great job with it. It's I do miss the park not being open to midnight though.
Yeah, that's a real shame that they don't do that anymore. Um, I the thing about the 4th of July at Kings Island is I remember between Paramount and early Cedar Fair and all that, like the 4th of July really was a day to be at Kings Island because they would have extra entertainment. I remember they had like an Elvis impersonator one year, like a bunch of cool stuff. Now it's just a normal day with red, white, and blue bunting. But the fireworks show is phenomenal on the 4th of July. They really, really do a great job with that. So I wish more people would get to see it. There's just a lot of stuff to do on the 4th. They're competing with a lot of different people. I feel like if they did it the 29th through the 4th or the 5th, that it would be like it would pay off more. I
Well, they
would.
certainly would sell more tickets. That's for sure. In terms of those single day ticket purchasers in getting people from further out than just the local market to come out for it. So they certainly would do better there. But moving on, you brought it up before, talked a little bit about it. Grand Carnival,
Mm-hmm.
July 18th to August 2nd. Now, we've seen this event every year. It kind of changes a little bit, gets watered down a little bit. We heard there would be changes to it this year. We don't know what those are, but what are your thoughts?
We were pretty certain this wasn't coming. Weren't we pretty certain last year that it was going to be the last year?
We thought if it came back this year, it would be the last year this year.
Okay, I couldn't remember because I think that the intention is to transition the entire chain. Well, all the chains that do this or all the parks that do this sort of thing to the whatever that Hispanic music festival is, the Latin music festival. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so there would be changes. That's coming from Tony Clark at Winter Chill Out, I believe. I feel like if there were going to be positive changes, he would have kind of teased something like there's something cool coming. By changes, I don't know because it's hard to pin down like, oh, they're not going to do a parade because they talk about in the description as well as the opening and closing ceremonies are all discussed. They also mentioned drones in the closing ceremony, so we know we're getting drones this year essentially. Um, I feel like maybe there's only going to be a few food items. It's going to be just
It
in.
gets there's less food items every year.
Yeah.
There's fewer countries. When you look at how many countries they started out representing and what they're down to now, so there's reduction there. So it's really a scaled back event. And I thought this was something they could really build on
Mm.
when it was first introduced, and they could make it. It was pretty immersive the first year, but they could make it an event that every year they add different food items. They add different entertainment to it. The name's the same, but the event is better, if that makes sense. You see that at other parks that have these repeat events year after year. It's not the same event every year. It's the same name, but they find ways to mix up the menu, mix up the live entertainment, do different things with it, so you're not seeing the same exact event every year. And that's not the case with what we have announced so far. It's nothing new to see and experience, from what we see on the website. And that's a little bit disappointing because you'd like to see, always trying to be better the next year with what you're doing. And this is just kind of let's just roll it out and let's just fill up the dates count, the events calendar.
Yeah, and I mean, a good example of that is, Mardi Gras at Universal. I brought that up before, but Mardi Gras, and I'm not saying that they should be on the scale of Universal or anything like that. That's not what I'm suggesting. But Mardi Gras has like a lead float, and it's got the floats that people ride on that throw the beads and so on, kind of like King's Islands. Um, and beyond that, they replace every float every year, except for like if one or two are super popular, they bring them back. And some of them are staples. There's one that shoots fire that represents like hibachi grilling and stuff. I guess I don't know, but that's come back for a couple years because people love it. But with this, it's kind of like it's the exact same thing except a few less floats every year. And I know that somebody on KI Central said that they had spoken to either Mr. Koontz or somebody else, and they said like, why is like this event less every year? Or like, why was it awesome the first year and now it's this? And they said, well, we have a tendency to throw everything at things the first year, and then we decide what works and we go with that. And it's like, well, I feel like that's a terrible way to do business because at
Not a
Universal,
good strategy.
yeah, I mean, well, at Universal, it's kind of like I had a great time at Mardi Gras. What's in store for next year? They make it a little bit bigger and a little bit better and a little bit different every year. But with this, it's kind of like, I mean, honestly, like, I mean, me, I was the number one Grand Carnival. I went almost every day of Grand Carnival the first year. But nowadays, it's almost like I don't even know if I can recommend it to people who have seen it before because it's like, you've already seen it. You're fine.
Yeah,
You
it's
know?
a scaled down event from what it was, and it seems to me like they're doing it because they need to have an event. We already got the floats, already got this. Let's just do it again. And it's like one of those kind of events that you've seen different parks do because they've they've got to. They feel obligated that they have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an event like let's say Coaster Mania at Cedar Point. That used to be an awesome event, but they did some changes, watered it down a little bit. Now it's open to the world, and now it's almost like they do it just because they have to do it. They feel like they got to do it, and that kind of mindset shows when you're participating in that event versus a park that wants to do those type of events. But you look at the calendar; it stops right there with events with Grand Carnival as of this recording. You look at Carowinds, you look at Cedar Point, fall events listed, winter events, listed at Carowinds with Winterfest. But you don't see Haunt, you don't see Tricks and Treats, you don't see Winterfest listed on Kings Island's website. Reason for concern?
No. Well, I mean, yes, reason for concern, but not for the events. I think that this might be a competence thing. Now, part of it might be that they don't know how they're going to position Haunt in terms of like they really did kind of have a disruption with charging for the mazes and stuff last year. So how are they going to position it at least at Kings Island this year? Uh, Tricks and Treats, that's going to be a rinse, wash, repeat thing again. It's going to be the same. Same with Winterfest. I'm surprised that they're not on the website. I'm not that surprised they're not on the website, but I would be surprised if they didn't come back.
Well, couple things there. First of all, Kings Island, for whatever reason, they've had that for at least 12, 15 years.
Mm,
That mindset that if they put things out there too far in advance, somebody might delay their visit.
right.
That was the mindset. Let's wait as long as we can before we announce this, because we don't want somebody to put off a visit because they see that this is happening, later in the year. They've gotten a little bit better about it, putting things out there a little more in advance. Like there was a time Grand Carnival would not have been announced until like 2 weeks before the event.
Mm-hmm.
So they've gotten better with those kind of things. So that's a little bit of it. There's just that mindset, people involved at the park and on those brand teams that oversee Kings Island about, we don't want to have someone delay a visit because they see this down the road. And the other part of it is Kings Island, unlike other parks, has those dates in September that are company sellouts.
Mm-hmm.
Those contracts, until they're signed, they're holding those dates. If something fell through, now those become a public operating day. We've seen that happen before, where all of a sudden, the second Sunday in September they're open, and then they're scrambling to let everyone know that the park is open that day. So that's part of it too. So if you don't know that you're going to have those dates, if they find out that the weekend before Haunt, they're not going to have that park sell out that weekend, then they can move Haunt, add 2 more days to it. So I think that's part of why maybe they don't necessarily put that out there right now. So there's a lot of different things that Kings Island deals with that some other parks do not with those sellouts. Now, something that was not listed in the events, and it's also the same thing with Cedar Point. You don't see coaster stock listed. It had been in previous years. You don't see Coaster Mania mentioned. It had been in recent years. Now, Tony Clark said both events were going to be happening. He said coaster stock would happen, but with some changes, which everyone speculated would become the Cedar Point model of one day and open to the world,
Mm-hmm.
which would not be a good thing. That would completely destroy the event, if they were to go that route. And I think the longer they wait if they're going to do coaster stock, the longer they wait to put that out there, the more it's going to be nothing more than a local pass holder event, because the coaster enthusiasts who travel, they have to give their vacation dates. A lot of them needed to do it in January.
Yeah. Book a
Everyone always
hotel.
banked on that. Yeah, but everyone always banked on that weekend before Memorial Day. But that changed in 2024 when they didn't do coaster stock that weekend. They instead did the ACE event. Great event, but it took something away, from what coaster stock had become and what everyone was banking on. And then last year they switched the date. They could have done it that weekend that they always did before, but nope, they wanted to go head to head with another event to try to prove that they could sell out an event going head to head. That didn't happen. So by not having it on there, I think that that begs the question: are they really going to do that? Are they going to bring coaster stock back? And again, if they do, the longer they go, if it does still become an event that you have to be a Coaster Club member, they're all committed elsewhere. There's an event early June. There's the Coaster Rodeo in Texas, 3 days. People can look at that as an option. Coaster Mania is back. They look at that. Holiday World had their event. They sold out already. You got that. There's other events. Ace has their spring conference. Ace has their summer conference a couple weeks after coaster stock would have happened. So there's just so many other options out there that people have already, they know that it's there. They've already committed, taken the vacation days, booked their hotel and all that, that the longer they go, it does just become more of a local pass holder event.
Yeah. Now, okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to preface it by saying that I think they should have announced it by now. I agree with everything you're saying, but I also don't think that Coaster Mania and Coaster Stock should be listed as an event on the website, because that's almost like dangling an invitation to a party you're not invited to in front of your face.
But if they're not open, I mean, if they're open to everybody, it's an event.
Oh, if they are, then yeah. But I'm saying but I'm saying like in its current form, where you have to be a member of, ACE or GOC or whomever. I don't think that should be listed. I think that they should work directly with the event promoters, within the clubs for those things. But that may be their thought process with it. But who knows? I mean, we live in strange times. Who knows? It's going to be a one-day thing. Again, if he said that there's going to be changes, and maybe I'm transposing the Grand Carnival comment about changes with the coaster stock thing about changes. But I feel like if he was going to make it 3 days, for example, he would tease it's going to be a bigger and better event. instead of just saying there's going to be changes, I think he's trying to set expectations that it's not going to be the same event that people had enjoyed in the past.
And speaking of Tony, and Cedar Point has some new events this year. Other parks in the Six Flags portfolio offering new events this year. Kings Island still, pretty much same old there. But what's posted right now. But a new signature event that I'm pretty excited about, Barrels and Bites. It's going to be along the Frontier Trail. It's going to offer a selection of the region's finest beer, bourbon, and wine, along with specialty food pairings. It's going to run June 5th to June 28th, so a pretty long run there for this, from 4 p.m. until park close, except for Tuesdays. Guests will be able to partake in sampling menu items such as smoked pork belly sliders with pickled onions, crispy, was it poblano pepper straws, and blue cheese crema, mini crab cakes with apple and habanero slaw, chocolate stout mousse cups, flaming strawberry shortcake, honey and herb brine smoked wings. That's what I'm interested in, is those. Just a lot of different things going on there. They'll have music to heighten the festive atmosphere uh, during the duration of the event. Guests participating, they can enjoy games of cornhole, ring toss. Local artists from Loft at 3611, they'll create homemade custom hats for purchase. The theme park's leather shop, rock shop, glass blowing store, and wood carver will also highlight limited edition handcrafted items, including barrels and bites branded merchandise. Sounds like a lot of fun, doesn't it?
I love the event branded merchandise. I even bought the Food and Wine tumbler and T-shirt the year that the first year of Food and Wine at Kings Island, because I was so sure the event wouldn't come back that I wanted to document it for posterity, as wise men once said. So I think that's cool. Cedar Point does events really well.
They do, and this event will be included with park admission. However, the tasting cards, they will have tasting cards, will be required to sample the food and beverages.
Yeah. I wish they would do tasting cards at Grand Carnival, but what we're hearing is once again, no, they're not doing that. But I don't get it. I think that is the most insane thing. They had tasting cards which were like $80, but they sold a ton of them, but then they didn't have them, and no one was ever in line for the food. Like that's more profitable just having food go bad than to have people. I mean, like maybe I'm not the businessman that I think I am, but I think that's insane.
It made no sense to me not to have the tasting cards last year for Grand Carnival.
I mean, heck, I used to go up and make extra visits. Like, oh, I've got 2 more tastings before it's whatever. Anyway, let's give a shout out to our prestige members. I want to give a big shout out to Miss Mandy, 1983, Little Mac, 21, Brian Hauser, 330T, Aaron Bort, Jacob Fix, Damon Barnes, Dakota Cole, Eric Grau, Gibson Hills, Connor Wheeler, Dustin Jackson, Songstress Miku, Medic 302, Eastern Coaster, Guys and Girls, Justin Y, Mike Garrett, Galaxy B-Boy, Greggy Rocks, Kayla La, T Cleveland, and Tim Dwelly. Thank you guys so much for supporting Tower Topics at the highest level. That's the prestige level. If you want to be involved in Tower Topics, there's a link in the description. Members get early access to the videos, exclusive content, exclusive live streams. Some tiers you can get some free stuff. So hit that link in the description. Starting at just $2.99 is the best way to support your pals here at Tower Topics. Oof. Do you think they'll add more events, Don? Do you think there's more to come? I mean, obviously they're going to have the stuff at the end of the season, but do you
think the Fall and Winterfest will be added? I don't think you'll see any other events that are thrown in there. I would like to see more, but I don't think you'll see more.
If you were going to have an event, like just top your head right now, like if you were going to add an event to Kings Island, like what theme would you pick? I know I'm putting you on the spot.
We're going to add an event. I would try to do something that would appeal to the younger guests. I would look to bring back something, geared toward the Peanuts character, Peanut celebration again.
Yeah, I was thinking like Snoopy or Charlie Brown's birthday. I think they could have a week-long celebration celebrating Snoopy's birthday and stuff, and do special things with the character. The Peanut celebration, by the way, for being something that was like kind of pragmatically thrown together was really, really cool when they had it. I'm surprised it didn't
Yeah,
do more.
I think another event maybe would be. I think they could do an Oktoberfest event really well.
Yeah. I would just worry about pulling resources away from everything else going on that time of year. You know, yeah, because I mean, at some of these parks, they got Haunt, Tricks and Treats, and Oktoberfest. But if they did Oktoberfest like if they didn't have the September dates and they did Oktoberfest like late August through the beginning of Tricks and Treats, I think that could work.
I agree.
All right. Anyway, I'm Ryan. That's Don. This is Tower Topics.